Alright, this is gonna be a long one, so bear with me. This all started about 2 weeks ago, and since then, I've gone from completely trusting my wife to questioning everything. We met when I was 19, and things moved fast between us. At the time, she had a 4-month-old baby from a past relationship, and the father hadn't been in the picture since before I came along. Growing up, I always dreamed of being a dad, but due to a genetic condition, we decided adoption was the best route, and honestly, I was totally on board with that. Since then, life felt normal. We were just your everyday family, doing everyday things. We got married last year. She's never been especially close to her family, but there are a couple of cousins she keeps in touch with. I like them, they seem decent, down to earth. One of them, let's call him Sean, stood out to me because unlike her other family members, who always seemed a bit uptight, he was pretty relaxed and relatable. She did mention once that when they were kids, like 12 or 13, Sean had tried to kiss her. But she shrugged it off, saying he was just being a dumb kid. We see him every Christmas, and honestly, he seemed like a regular guy, nothing off about him. Lately, she and Sean had reconnected a bit and started going to a few family get-togethers. Since we only have one car and I usually need it for work, he'd pick her up for those events. It didn't seem weird. I mean, they're cousins, right? She didn't act any differently when she got home from those gatherings. No strange behavior or red flags, at least nothing obvious. Then out of nowhere one evening, as I was watching TV, she randomly brought up a female coworker I've gotten friendly with. Now, we've always had an open and honest kind of relationship. She's joked about hot guys before, even said stuff that'd probably be considered pretty lewd, and I've never taken it personally. I've always felt comfortable being upfront with her too. But that night? It felt different. She didn't accuse me of cheating, but the tone was off, like she was trying to start something. I've read about this kind of behavior, how people who cheat sometimes project their guilt onto their partners. As for those family events, they seem totally legit. The whole family posts photos from them on Facebook, and she sent me a few pictures herself. There were 2 get-togethers in particular. Both times, she came home acting almost robotic. Our intimacy didn't completely vanish, but it had definitely quieted down. That's happened before when her depression flares up, so I didn't press too hard. When I asked how she was doing, she blamed her mood swings. I believed her. Then, 2 weeks ago, she left for work, and since I had the day off, I stayed home, dropped our son off at school, and lounged around. I hopped on the computer to check my email and social media. That's when I saw it, a message on Facebook. It was from Sean, her cousin. We'd recently chatted about maybe catching a minor league baseball game, so I figured he was following up. But the message read, "I'd like to see you on your knees." I froze. Confused at first. Then it hit me, she was still logged into Facebook. That message wasn't for me. He was talking to her. I panicked and opened up the chat history between them. What I found made my stomach turn. It was full of him flirting hard, pushing boundaries. And her responses? They were always something like, "But I'm married," or, "No, I'm married." But they didn't sound firm. They sounded hesitant. Like she was saying no because she had to, not because she really wanted to. I felt sick. I was shocked, disgusted. But technically, nothing had happened, at least not that they'd admitted to. She was turning him down, though in a way that didn't feel like she meant it. That night, after we put our son to bed, I brought it up. I showed her what I saw. She completely broke down, crying, panicking, saying stuff like, "I didn't do anything," and "I didn't know how to tell you." She said she was just hoping Sean would stop on his own. Both of us have a really dark past, childhood trauma from people who should have protected us, so we've been through years of therapy together. Because of that, we've always been good at setting boundaries and being open with each other about things like this. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But the way she hid it, the way she acted so normal afterward, it didn't sit right. I told her I believed her and asked if she wanted me to message him, to let him know I'd seen everything and that I was beyond disgusted. or if she wanted to be the one to tell him herself. At first, she said she'd message him, tell him I knew, and to stop contacting her. But then she hesitated. She seemed sure it would all just blow over on its own. That really ticked me off. But I kept it to myself. I finally told her, "Look, if you're not going to do it, I will. If this guy is harassing my wife, I need to step in. And if he's not harassing you, then you're cheating on me. Either way, I'm not staying quiet." So I messaged him. He saw it, didn't reply. Later, she told me I shouldn't have said anything, that I should have let her handle it. But I explained that I couldn't just sit back and do nothing. And eventually, she came around. She admitted that maybe I was right to confront him, because honestly, she didn't know what to do herself. For a little while, things seemed to settle down. It felt like we were okay. But 3 days later, everything changed. I came home to find her crying. When I asked what was wrong, she just said, "It's Sean. You should have let me handle it." Apparently, she'd messaged him the day before, and he hadn't replied. We revisited the whole situation, my decision to step in and not just stand by while someone harassed my wife. During the conversation, she gave me a look, subtle, but telling. It was enough to make me wonder if, deep down, she didn't see what Sean was doing as harassment. We wrapped up that talk with a mutual understanding. I handled it the way most people would. 2 nights later, I was up late working, around 2 a.m., when I overheard her on the phone, laughing. That struck me as odd. She said it was her mom, talking about something related to our kid's birthday. But I didn't buy it. That's when I decided to keep playing dumb. I figured it'd be easier to get a clearer picture if I just laid low and paid attention. The next day, she was crying again. That was it. I'd hit my limit. She'd been an emotional wreck for 2 weeks straight. I asked if this was still about Sean. She admitted she tried to call him to apologize for not handling things herself, but he still wouldn't respond. I lost it. I snapped. Told her straight up, either this guy's abusing you, or you're cheating on me, and I caught you both. I said I'd be sleeping on the couch that night. God, I wanted to believe her. But I'm not stupid. I was lying there waiting for the truth to finally come out, and every gut instinct I had told me something wasn't right. If that was the case, I was ready to go full-on nuclear. On both of them. She had to work in 6 hours, so I made a plan. I'd apologize for my outbursts later and ask her to sit down with me for a real talk that night. It was Sunday, and our son usually stayed with my parents every other Sunday night. That gave me time and privacy. I'm not proud of this, but I knew I had to do some digging. If I found nothing, then we'd talk it through. I'd ask when it started, how I could support her, and what we could do to move forward. I love her. And the idea that someone in her own family might be coercing her made me sick. But if I found anything suspicious, or worse, if she'd been a willing part of it, that would be it. Game over. I don't believe in marriage counseling for cheating, and if incest is involved, there's no coming back from that. I'd never be able to look at her the same way again. Update: I didn't sleep at all last night. When she got up, I had breakfast ready. I apologized for blowing up and suggested we sit down after work and talk everything out. Strangely, she agreed, like she wasn't even mad. She even admitted that she'd probably been acting out of line lately. I told her I understood how difficult this must be, especially since it involves someone from her own family. She nodded like she got it. Even though I didn't want to dig through her stuff, a lot of people online had told me to check her emails. So I did. I wasn't ready for what I found. The disgust, the rage, the betrayal I felt, there are no words. There was an email with the subject, "Yummy." Attached was a picture of Sean with, let's just say, something inappropriate on his face. The messages that followed were beyond vile. He talked about hooking up with random men, referenced past sexual encounters he had with her, and even sent a photo of a sex toy labeled, "I still have our old friend." She replied, and not just casually. Her messages were mocking, cruel, dominant. She ridiculed his size. She seemed to enjoy humiliating him. Looking at the timestamps, I figured out this all happened about a year ago, before we got married, but after we'd already been together for several years. As I read more, it became clear they used to hook up regularly and only stopped when we tied the knot. Even that, though, didn't feel like a clean break. She'd later say things like, "I'm married now," but in a way that made it sound like part of the kink, like he got off on being told he couldn't have her anymore. And here I am. The guy who's been raising her son, shifting my work hours, turning down better-paying jobs so I could be home for him. For 6 years. I was broken. I went outside, called my brother, and asked him to hold on to my firearm for a while. I'm not a violent man, never have been, but I couldn't trust my own state of mind. I was oscillating between rage and despair, and I didn't want to risk doing something I couldn't undo. I packed a bag, checked into a hotel. I printed every message, every email, and sent them to myself. When I get a moment, I'll keep digging. There's more, I'm sure of it. I even bought a pack of cigarettes. First time in 4 years. That's how wrecked I am. Next on my list? An appointment at an STD clinic. Because based on what I read, Sean's fetish involves unprotected sex with other men. And I've never used protection with my wife, since she had an IUD. Now I get to sit with that terror, waiting for test results. Wondering if trusting her cost me my health, too. I also happen to know his work schedule. I used to work for the same company. Part of me wishes I didn't. I seriously considered driving straight to his wife's house, evidence in hand. But honestly, there's no fixing any of this. No therapy, no salvaging the relationship, no. We can work through this. Talk. I'm not interested in hearing an apology. I've made up my mind, I'm filing for divorce. She gets nothing. I'm not sad. I'm not depressed. What I feel is this searing knot of rage in my chest, only dulled by chain-smoking cigarettes. I can't be around her. I can't even think about being in the same room as him. And I know I said I'm not a violent man, but some part of me is itching for a physical confrontation. I want them both to feel what I felt, not just emotionally, but viscerally. As for those family get-togethers, yeah, they were real. The whole extended family posts about them on Facebook. She sent me photos from those events too. 2, to be exact. And both times, she came home acting like a zombie. Not cold, just empty. Distant. Our sex life didn't fall off a cliff, but it did quiet down. That's happened before when she struggled with depression, so I chalked it up to mood swings. She even said as much when I asked. Quick clarification, my stepson is not a product of incest. He looks just like his biological father. A DNA test was done years ago for child support purposes. Once it confirmed paternity, the guy vanished. I've only heard his name once in the last 4 years. The last couple of days have been brutal, emotionally chaotic doesn't even begin to describe it. Long story short, I found out my wife has been cheating on me with her cousin Sean, and not just recently. It's been going on for a while. So long, in fact, that it kind of feels like I was the affair, like she was cheating on him with me. After consulting a lawyer, I went straight to Sean's house and sat down with his wife. Understandably, she was devastated. Disgusted doesn't even cover it. When I told her it wasn't just infidelity but incest, she looked like the ground had opened beneath her. I also let her know that Sean had been bragging to my wife about sleeping with random men online, unprotected, and sending her photos of himself with, on his face. She was horrified, but insisted on seeing the photos herself, despite my warnings. It hit her hard. She knew about his past, that he identified as bisexual and had a history of hooking up with guys from sketchy websites. But she believed that phase was long behind him. She used to let him have occasional outings, thinking it helped keep the peace at home. After that conversation, I checked into a hotel and made calls to my mom, my brother, and my dad. My mother-in-law, meanwhile, left me several voicemails, all begging me to talk. I ignored them. My wife called too, but I didn't answer. I figured she knew I'd found out and assumed I'd start documenting everything. She didn't text either, smart move. That's what I'd do if I were her. Eventually, I called her. Said we'd talk the next day and hung up. When I came home, she was a wreck. Crying. Trying to hug me. I backed away and told her, flat out. It's over. She started denying everything, said I'd misread the situation, claimed Sean's wife was just spreading lies because they hate each other. And that's when I realized she didn't know I'd found it all myself. She thought I was going off hearsay. So I dropped the bomb. I laid out printed emails and texts, messages filled with explicit photos, a sex toy labeled, "Our old friend." All of it. She played some kind of dominatrix role in their dynamic, directing him, mocking him, even asking for play-by-play updates after his random hookups. She saw the evidence. And then the mask came off. Sadness turned to rage. She lost it, full-blown meltdown. Yelling, sobbing, screaming. "You should have talked to me first." And, "She's telling everyone. This'll ruin me." That's when I exploded. I reminded her I'd read everything, a full year of messages, and she never once told him to stop. Not once. I called her a degenerate. I told her I might have been exposed to AIDS because of her. And then I told her the divorce was happening, no question about it. Afterward, I called her dad. Told him he needed to come over. She couldn't be alone in the state she was in, and I wasn't going to be her emotional support anymore. Back at the hotel, I saw messages from Sean's wife. She'd gone deep into her own investigation and found conversations between them dating back to when MySpace was still a thing. According to her, their sexual relationship started when they were 15 or 16, not 12 or 13 like my wife originally claimed when she said he tried to kiss her once. That crushed me. I don't cry. I'm not the emotional breakdown type. But sitting there, reading that, I just lost it. I cried in front of Sean's wife. She cried too. And in that moment, we both understood just how long we'd been living a lie. I brought Max's wife, Sherry, to see my lawyer. One of his partners is going to handle her divorce now. Through all this, Max has been spiraling. Crying, panicking, trying to figure out where his wife is, still reaching out to me as if this could somehow be chalked up to a misunderstanding. Turns out, Max and Sherry live in a house owned by his parents, and they've come down hard on him. Like scorched earth hard. They told him he's no longer welcome there, and they personally apologized to Sherry, saying she's more than welcome to stay in that house with their grandchild as long as she wants. Max's dad even somehow convinced himself that Sean, yeah, I've stopped using Max, in my head, had been abusing my wife since she was a kid. He always considered her his favorite niece, basically a second daughter. Now, Sean is on the run, figuratively speaking. His dad wants nothing to do with him. In fact, he wants him dead. And I'm not even sure that's an exaggeration. My own father, without me even asking, offered to cover my hotel bill for the week. Just wanted to do something, anything, to help. This morning, I walked into my boss's office and told him everything. No sugarcoating, no soft language. Just laid it all out. He shared a bit about how awful his own divorce was and told me to take all the time I needed. Said he'd just tell everyone I was taking care of a sick parent, or something. Honestly, that small gesture meant the world. Now I'm lying on this hotel bed, staring at the ceiling, thinking about a boy I might never see again. My stepson. I raised that kid for 6 years. I changed his diapers, fed him bottles at 3 a.m., called off work when he was sick. I sat by his bed when he broke his arm and waited on him hand and foot so his mom could sleep before her shift. And now, I might lose him completely. That thought, more than anything, is what's gutting me. The rest of the world could crumble into ash and I'd barely flinch. But never seeing that boy again? That's the part that wrecks me. I know I need therapy. A lot of it. I'm not at risk of hurting myself, don't worry. I don't believe in that. I'm an atheist, this is the only shot I've got. If I check out, that's it. End of the line. Later today, I've got a phone call with my lawyer. We're supposed to meet up with Sherry and her legal team again, because apparently, there's still more I don't know. I also have a doctor's appointment tomorrow. Then begins 6 excruciating months of waiting for test results. Today's the day we tell my son what's going on. Neither of us wants to do it. But it has to be done. Last night, I had a phone conversation with my soon-to-be ex, and her tone took me by surprise. She didn't resist the divorce. In fact, she sounded almost accepting. She got emotional while trying to explain her relationship with her cousin, insisting that during the years we were together, it was nothing more than a few dirty texts. Nothing physical. Yeah, sure. But now the storm clouds are rolling in, she's suddenly demanding the car. Her argument is that I work 20 minutes away and she works an hour away, so she needs it more. Thing is, the car's on its last legs, maybe has 2 good years left in it. I'm thinking of letting her take it and just buying a new one, since I'll need one soon anyway. But I worry giving in now will set a tone for the entire divorce. Honestly, I don't even feel like leaving my apartment anymore. Knowing she's moving in with her parents, I might just wait until she's officially gone. According to her Facebook posts, that'll probably be within the week. Then have a conversation with my landlord. He's had trouble filling units during COVID, so maybe he'll be glad to keep a paying tenant like me. Had breakfast with my dad today. He approached things delicately but was clear. He advised me not to make any written promises or agreements about staying involved in my stepson's life. Let me be clear, he loves that kid. Always has. He goes out of his way to spoil him on holidays and birthdays, surprises him with random toys. But he also sees the big picture. He knows what kind of family this is, and he doesn't want me shackled to their madness for life. He reminded me I passed up the chance to go to school, to be a family man instead. And while the family would never hold it against me if I chose to walk away from fatherhood now, they'd support me either way. Maybe once I talk to my therapist, appointments in 3 weeks, I'll feel differently. But right now I'm committed. I still want to be this boy's father. After breakfast, I drove Sherry to her next meeting with Sean. I didn't go in. That would have been a bad idea, way too much potential for things to get ugly. I hung out in the Sonic drive-thru for a while, listening to music, buying a drink here and there so I wouldn't seem suspicious, and waiting for Sherry to text me when she was ready to be picked up. When it was over, she looked a little worse than when she'd gone in. Sean tried to shift the blame to my soon-to-be ex, saying the reason they didn't stop years ago was because of her. He claimed all the stories he told about hooking up with random guys were just part of some dirty fantasy they shared, and that there was only ever one real person involved, his boyfriend. He said he made the rest up. It sounded sketchy, but I don't know. Something about it felt true. Sherry was crushed. Not just because of what he said, but because of how he acted, like he hadn't slept in days, didn't even look at their daughter, and didn't mention her until she brought her up. She was trying hard to hold it together for the baby's sake, but it was obvious she was wrecked. I stayed for dinner. I didn't want to leave her like that. We cooked together. I showed her how to make garlic bread out of hamburger buns and pasta with whatever we could find in her fridge. At one point, she sang this soft French lullaby to her daughter. Something about that moment hit me right in the chest. It was just sweet. But then I noticed something that kind of broke me. Sherry was using some of the old baby furniture I'd given my stepson years ago. Stuff I'd spent time picking out, assembling, cleaning. Seeing it in her home, in the middle of this whole mess, made everything feel even more twisted. When I left, we shared a long hug. No words. Just that quiet kind of goodbye. She kissed me on the cheek. I carried that with me the rest of the night. I'm still trying to make sense of it all, how I can be boiling with hate and heartbreak, and yet feel that little glimmer of warmth from someone else in the same storm. It's been almost 3 weeks since D-Day. Over a month since everything fell apart. I haven't really talked much about the state of our marriage before all this, but I feel like now's the time. Consider this my therapy through typing moment. If this is your first time hearing my story, the short version is, I found out by accident, through a Facebook message, that my wife was having a sexual affair with her cousin, Sean. I told Sean's wife, Sherry, and together we exposed the whole thing. Somewhere in the fallout, Sherry and I started spending more time together and realized we shared a mutual attraction. Nothing serious, but something real. I filed for divorce yesterday. I went down to the courthouse, stood at the counter talking to the bailiff, and filled out all the paperwork. My ex and I agreed to avoid lawyers. We wanted to get through this fast, clean, without dragging it out. We split the assets ourselves. No mediation needed. We tried to serve her right then and there, but turns out you can't do it that way. So I ended up driving her back to her parents' house. Even after all this, I asked her how she was holding up. Her mask cracked just a little. Through tears, she admitted she was okay with me being gone, but that the only thing that hurt was when our son asked about me. She said it stung when he talked about missing me. And then she said something that surprised me, even though I probably should have seen it coming. She said she'd been unhappy long before we got married. Not angry, not resentful, just emotionally checked out. She didn't fall out of love in one moment. It was slow. Quiet. I think I saw it happen in real time but couldn't admit it to myself. She talked about our sex life, how it fell out of rhythm. We were both still intimate, but not connected. Not in sync. I liked to be pursued. She hated chasing. She liked to be the one to initiate. I didn't like being pursued. We tried switching roles to make it work, but eventually it just turned into me giving up what I wanted and only doing things her way. And the things she wanted, some of them made me uncomfortable. I never liked them. Never got better at them. And after a while, I think out of spite, she started shutting down anything I wanted. While Sherry met with Sean, I waited in the Sonic drive-thru, music on, sipping a few drinks just to look like I had a reason to be there, and waited for her text to pick her up. She was worse off than before. Sean apparently blamed my soon-to-be ex for everything, said she was the reason their affair hadn't ended years ago. He also claimed the stories about hookups with other guys were fake, just part of some twisted sexual fantasy he played out with her. Supposedly, there was only one real person, his boyfriend, and the rest was made up. I know it sounds suspicious. But for some reason, I actually believe him. Sherry was heartbroken. What really crushed her was that Sean looked like he hadn't slept in days, didn't acknowledge their daughter, and hadn't even mentioned her until Sherry brought her up. Still, she held it together for the baby. I helped make dinner. We whipped up some makeshift garlic bread and pasta, and at one point she sang a soft French song to her daughter. Something about that moment, her voice, the tenderness, just got to me. But then I saw something that messed me up again. Sherry was using some of the baby furniture I'd once picked out for my stepson. Seeing that stuff again, in her home, made everything feel so surreal. Like I was living in someone else's memory. When I left, she gave me a long, wordless hug and kissed me on the cheek. That little moment carried me through the rest of the night. It's hard to explain how I can feel so much anger and betrayal, while still feeling something so soft and good. It's been nearly 3 weeks since D-Day. A little over a month since my world flipped upside down. I haven't really talked much about the state of our marriage before all this, but I think it's time. Consider this a bit of self-therapy through typing. If you're new here, the TLDR is this. I found out by accident on Facebook that my wife was having a sexual relationship with her cousin, Sean. I told Sean's wife, Sherry. That opened the floodgates. Somewhere in the chaos, Sherry and I connected, and yeah, we started casually seeing each other. Yesterday, I filed for divorce. I went to the courthouse, talked to the bailiff, filled out the paperwork. My ex and I had agreed to settle everything ourselves, no lawyers, no mediation. We even tried to serve her right there in the courthouse to avoid having law enforcement show up at her home or job. But that didn't work, so I ended up driving her back to her parents' place. On the ride, I asked how she was doing. She cried, just a little, and said she was fine with me being gone, but that it hurt whenever our son asked where I was. She admitted that she'd fallen out of love with me long before the affair. Not out of anger, just out of something. She said our sex life had been out of sync for a long time, and she wasn't wrong. We'd talked about that before. I like to be pursued, she hates chasing. She likes initiating, I hate being pursued. For a while, we even tried swapping roles to make it work. But in the end, I was the one who kept giving up what I wanted. Some of the things she liked, I just couldn't get into. And the stuff I enjoyed? She stopped doing them, maybe out of resentment. We used to have a female roommate, a mutual friend we both found attractive. With strict boundaries in place, she became a part of our relationship for a while, and weirdly it helped. For a time, it filled the gaps we had in bed. It worked. We were a strong team, great with money, solid communication, good co-parents. We shared a love for the same movies, the same creative drive. I'm a writer, she's an illustrator. We really were best friends. But the tension in our sex life always lingered. Eventually, the third woman left. She wanted a boyfriend, and no guy was signing up for our kind of setup. Around that same time, Sean and Sherry moved into a second home owned by his parents. They'd been out of state, but after Sean lost his job, they came back. That's when Sean and my ex started seeing each other again. It started innocent, just cousins catching up. Then one day, she vented about our sex life, which I now see was probably an open invitation. That's when the affair began. They'd sneak away during family events, finding excuses to disappear. Looking back, I remember times I couldn't find her, even on our wedding day. God, it probably happened at our wedding. Lately, she's been seeing a therapist, and now she's treating me like her confessional priest. She's pouring out every detail. Stuff I never asked for. Stuff I don't want to hear. And honestly, none of it changes anything. It doesn't help. Doesn't heal. Just stirs the pot. She even told me that time she cried for a week after her aunt died? That wasn't grief. That was her mourning when Sherry called to tell her she was pregnant, with Sean's baby. So there I was, holding my wife while she sobbed in my arms, thinking she was heartbroken over a dead aunt, when really, she was grieving her affair partner becoming a father. That hit me harder than the texts. All of this comes on the heels of a beautiful weekend I spent with my stepson. We had 2 full days together, just the two of us. Played catch, shared laughs, split-screen Minecraft. It was the best weekend I've had in a long time. He mentioned missing me, but said he liked being at his grandparents' place. They spoil him. Classic grandparent stuff. And after all that? I thought, yeah, I can still be his dad. I can handle it. Then she dropped all this new info. And I gotta be honest, I'm not sure anymore. The thought of voluntarily being tied to this woman for the rest of my life, even just as co-parents, it's starting to feel like too much. I know I should put the kid first, rise above, be the adult. But under these circumstances? Letting go is starting to look easier than holding on. And that's the part that shatters me the most. Not the marriage. Not even the betrayal. It's this. As for Sherry, I'll keep it short. Sean stopped responding to her 4 days ago. Turns out he moved in with his boyfriend. Yep. He has a boyfriend. She's planning to file for divorce by the end of the week. Her brother's coming to stay with her for a while. With Max's parents' blessing, we've changed the locks. Rumor has it Sean's been using something. No idea what, but we're playing it safe. I installed a new deadbolt and a chain. He's never been violent before, but then again, he's never vanished for days either. As for us, Sherry and me, we're quietly exploring something real. We both know this could just be trauma bonding. That we might be clinging to each other as a way to survive. But if I'm being honest, and maybe a little vain, this is the best sex I've ever had. I've never been so drawn to anyone before. I catch myself daydreaming about her at work, counting down the hours till I see her again. She says she feels the same. She's even stopped by work a couple of times this week just to drop off dinner. Homemade stuff. And honestly, that's one of the sweetest things anyone's ever done for me. So yeah, life is beating the crap out of me right now. And somehow, everything's also falling into place.